This is Dr. Lou Sella, and I'm a doctor of sport and performance psychology. In this video, we're going to discuss how the Zone Dive series solved the 2-in-1 gap problem. Now, you're going to say, well, why is that a problem? I'm going to show you why it's a problem. So, 5 years ago, Army played Tulane. Army started experimenting with a couple things. One of which was the reverse scoop / slice technique on midline triple option. So what Tulane did when they realized they had first started to do this was they would put a 4-eye basically on each tackle. The goal of the 4-eye was real simple. Make sure the tackle can't sweep and clear on mid-triple. So meaning, what they really wanted to make sure was the tackle could not inside release on mid-triple. Because if they were unable to do that, if they couldn't do the sweep part of it, they knew that the second thing they were going to do was what was going to blow up Army's world, which is what happened. They would have two linebackers head up on the guards. And it was real simple. If the guard blocked down, he replaced the guard. If the guard blocked out, he would replace the guard. If the guard pulled, he would follow the puller. If the guard pass set, he would replace the guard. So, what it did was anytime the guard would block down on an A-gap defender or out at a B-gap defender, the backer would blitz. If the guard pulled, the backer would go with the guard. This created a problem because when the tackle couldn't sweep the 4-eye on mid-triple, they would bring two guys through one gap and they blew up Army's world. So when Army tried to slice, reverse scoop, whatever you want to call it, Tulane screwed up their world. And that changed the way Army did business. Because the next week, they were blocking things totally different, both zone dive and mid-triple. So, here's what happens. If you want to know why the guard has to go straight ahead on zone dive, it's because of the 2-in-1 gap problem. Because if he blocked down, the backer would replace him. Nobody could get to the backer. And he would run clear through to the ball carrier. So they had to adjust and put the guard on the mic. The tackle would block down on the 4-eye. So regardless, if the 4-eye wanted to stay square or he tried to cut the tackle, all the tackle had to do was get in front of him. And the center, they would block down on the A-gap defender and go from there. What Air Force started doing in response to this was they just take the center, have him block the guard's spine, and then he works up to the second level with the guard. But the key is he's got to get to the spine first. He's got to get his right knee through the crotch of the guard's spine. That technique is really been what Air Force has done the last 5 years. And there's always been a great debate because Army does it one way, Air Force does it another way. But the point is, the Zone Dive series overcame the 2-in-1 gap problem. Because the center canceled the A gap, the guard posted, the tackle blocked the B gap. So they can't pop two people through the same gap. The backside guard blocks the spine of the center. Backside tackle blocks the spine of the backside guard. Also, by running stuff to a 3-man surface, which Flex does, now basically it's harder to put two guys through the same gap because you've created 8 total gaps. And that's hard. And when you run the follow and the kick, you create an extra gap because of the extra blocker. This is how Army overcame the 2-in-1 gap problem. But what you need to do is the guard has to be the post player. The tackle's got to block down on the 4-eye. And the center's got to cancel the A-gap, whether he gets in front of the A-gap player or he does what Air Force does and fully scoops and then works up with the guard. It doesn't matter if the center snaps the ball and open pulls and works behind the guard and gets vertical. The goal is you got to cancel the A-gap so the A-gap defender doesn't jet through. That's right now imperative, because otherwise people will do the 2-1 gap situation where guard blocks down, backer pops through, you have no answer. Because even on mid-triple, if the 4-eye just dives on the ground in front of the tackle, so the tackle can't sweep it on mid-triple, you've got nobody to account for the backer. But that's what the zone dive series did. It gets the defense to stop doing 2-1 gap, because you make them pay for it, because you create surface, which creates gaps, because they can't afford to put two guys in one gap because they run out of freaking gaps. So it changes the whole trajectory of how people play you. I can't stress enough how important this is. I will also tell you there were two coaches on that Tulane staff who ran camps for me years ago. I'm going to point that out. I'm just going to shut up and leave it at that. So, anyway, zone dive, follow. Why is zone dive so important to stop the 2-1 gap problem? Because when you make the guard the post player and you have the center cancel the A gap and the tackle cancel the B gap, if they give you A and B gap defenders, you've got 3 and 2 gaps now. Now they can't pop two guys through one gap, especially with the splits. Follow is even more important because the B back creates the extra gap for the quarterback to run. When you run the kick play, same thing. You've got 8 gaps, but what happens is you got the receiver down, you got the A back kicking and the B back leading through. He creates the extra gap. So now you out gap. So if they try to 2-1 gap you, you're going to obliterate them. That's why Army spends so much time on the zone dive series. It went to another level after the Tulane game because they create 8 gaps. Follow and kick really help because now you create the extra gap with the B back. And now you have the guard as the post player so they can't pop people through. The key is what you do with the center. Does he engage the shade or the A-gap player? That's the decision you have to make. Army does. Air Force just has him scoop. Benefit of having him just scoop is basically the purpose is it keeps everything consistent when you don't have an A-gap defender. Because when you get a 2-eye 2 or 3, it's easy. Or you get a 0 and a 4-eye or a 4, it's easy for the center. That's why people ask me questions about 0 techniques. If you get a 0 and a 4, who the heck cares? That's easy to run zone dive. You might put 4 people on the freaking mic. That's great. You just wreck the mic and go. And you're running to the bubble. The 0's flaccid in a odd front defense running zone dive because of where the ball hits. So that's how the zone dive series solved the 2-1 gap problem. And that's how you're going to solve it. So the next time you want to know why the guard doesn't block down or out on zone dive, now you know why. Coaches, you want to win big in 2025, call me. 570-332-0265, 570-332-0265, and go to tripleoptionfootball.com to learn more about the camps, the academies, and the testimonials that have come out of the Triple Option Football Academy. We'll see you in the next video. Talk soon.